It matters. It matters. It is tough to tell by the actions of our leaders. Leaders not just in Washington, but Mayor Bloomberg. He came out strongly in support of building the mosque and giving them incentives to do it, saying this.
Our doors are open to everyone. Everyone with a dream and a willingness to work hard and play by the rules.
Okay. I have no problem with that. He's exactly right. But now he's talking about incentives. Incentives for the mosque. But he also doesn't want to give those same incentives to a Christian church, separation of church and state there. The city voted 9-0 in supporting the building of the mosque. But it's been 9 years since the St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Church, which was crushed when the South Tower fell, and despite having blueprints drawn, being ready to build, the bureaucrats in New York haven't even given the green light yet. Why? Jews, Christians, and non-radical Muslims, which are the majority, wake up. The world is changing. Who is standing for freedom versus theocracies? In Canada, the Bible is now hate speech. There are no-go zones in France. You must open your eyes. Does anybody remember what happened on our election day in 2004, besides Bush being reelected? Does anybody remember what happened in Amsterdam? The controversial filmmaker Theo Van Gogh was riding his bike to his office. He's in a quiet residential street. He was called controversial because he used mockery to make his points in a film. He's 26-year-old radical that didn't agree with there was a 26-year-old radical that didn't agree with the tactic. He decided to pull out a gun and shoot Theo Van Gogh. Boom! Wounded him. Theo gets off his bike, stumbles, tries to make it across the street. He's calling for help. No one helped. The attacker ran up, despite the pleas from the filmmaker, urging that we could talk about it. No, no, don't do it, please. The pleas fell on deaf ears, and the attacker shot again. And then he went further. He slit the filmmaker's throat in the middle of the street, slaughtering him like an animal in broad daylight. After the life bled out of him in the street, the attacker placed a note on the dead man's chest and then took a knife and plunged it through him. The note was attached to Mr. Van Gogh by a knife. The note was not to the victim. The note was to America and Europe and those who were, quote, terrorizing Islam. May I ask a question? Do we need a note stabbed through our chest? 9/11 was our wake-up call. It should have woken us up that we have done things in the past that have caused trouble. But it should have also woken us up there are people that are trying to kill us. Now let me ask a question. Whose side are we on? Are we a God-fearing nation? Yes. Do you want to build a mosque? I have no problem. It's great. But build a mosque named after a place that celebrates the conquering of Christianity, that makes my radar go up. That's what Cordoba is. The World Trade Center was the Church of America, unfortunately, and I say that because they symbolized our new gods, the god of money and power. By knocking these towers down, it was the radicals symbolizing the conquering of America. If Americans don't find their God and find him soon, and then find their voice, you may not be able to find your God or voice in the future. And if you think that's an overstatement, let me show you what has not been covered by the media. The imam from the Ground Zero Mosque apparently wants Sharia law in America. I will introduce you to the guy who has been doing the research on this next. Everybody's talking about Ground Zero and the mosque. Should it be there? Should it not be there? I believe as a nation we're pretty clear. You can build any house of worship wherever you want to build, but shouldn't we be asking a more important question? Who are the people behind this? Where are they getting the funding? What do they really believe? According to our next guest, the imam behind the Ground Zero Mosque, Imam Rauf, makes no bones about his goal to build a mosque near sacred ground and to bring Sharia to America. To further explain, Frank Gaffney, president of the Center for Security Policy and assistant secretary of the Reagan Defense Department. Okay, I guess we start with Sharia. Explain quickly what Sharia is for anybody who doesn't know.
Sharia is a political program that the authorities of Islam have long believed, a millennium or so, must be imposed over the entire world, to be ruled by a theocracy, a caliph, and to impose Sharia as the rules. To give you a sense of how it operates, look at Saudi Arabia, look at Iran. They are governed by Sharia, and guys like Faisal Abdul Rauf, who want to bring Sharia to America, have in mind having us be governed as they are.
I'm going to get hammered, Frank, for probably even having you on. But I know I will get hammered for the statement that I made that he wants to bring Sharia because he's being marketed as a moderate. Give me the evidence that he is not who he claims to be.
I believe Rauf is a classic example of a larger enterprise, namely the implementation of Sharia's requirement that its adherents bring about that global theocracy through jihad, where appropriate through violent means, and where that's not the most effective way to do it, through more stealthy, as they call civilization means. And here's the thing, the Muslim Brotherhood operatives like Rauf are extremely skilled at obscuring for our benefit, the non-Muslims' world benefit, their true agenda, and often are portrayed, including by our government, sadly, not just under this administration, but previous ones, as moderates. It's part of the stealth jihad.
So, have you noticed, Frank, that it seems to be there seems to be a global effort against freedom in the world. It's not just the same tactics being used by radical Islam are the same tactics at the Weather Underground. The same. Who knew what fundamental transformation meant just 18 months ago? But you see what's happening, and by the time you figure it out, it's too late.
Right.
Is this the same thing that's happening here? I mean, is it the same kind of tactics that are being used over and over again throughout this administration? I'm not saying that they're connected, but, or maybe are they?
Well, I think there's a commonality of interest between folks who embrace what we've talked about before as kind of the transnational agenda of the left and the transnational agenda of the Islamists. They have their differences in terms of the end state. The left wants the world to be run by the UN or you know, sort of an international elite. The Islamists want it to be run by a caliphate. But what they have in common, Glenn, and this goes right to your question, is they both regard us as the impediment to the realization of their objectives. And they are working in concert in a lot of different ways that are advancing the takedown of the America, the mutation or fundamental transformation of America in ways that will, I'm afraid, make it much more difficult for us to stop either of these agendas at our expense.
Let me get, I don't know if you can comment on this, and I'm sorry, America, this may be too weird for you. But it was about 5 years ago that I heard Mahmoud Ahmadinejad say, "Oh Allah, give me the strength to do the things that I must do to hasten the return of the Promised One." And I remember I was working at CNN at the time, and all the journalists just walked away, and I went, wait, can somebody tell me what did he just say here? I went back and I looked, and if you look at the 12th Imam, and then you look at Bible prophecy, it's the same story in reverse. I mean, it is a global takeover. The 12th Imam comes back, global takeover, rules from Babylon, and beheads and kills anybody who won't bow to Islam. This is why Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is so important in what's happening in Israel, because they want that bloodshed. They believe, if they're not just being politicians and saying these things, if they actually believe in the 12th Imam, they believe the more chaos, the faster the Promised One comes. And it seems to me that we have all of these pieces just coming in that could lead to serious trouble. I'm not even biblical stuff. I'm just real trouble.
One of the other things that Ahmadinejad has said, not once but several times, is that it's not only desirable to bring about a world without America, it's achievable. And when you combine that with some of the things we see him or his regime doing, because he's in a way the front man, but the clerics behind him really do believe in this stuff, I think you're absolutely right. They're setting in motion apocalyptic ambitions that, if realized, I don't think are going to bring about the Mahdi, but they could bring about the destruction of Israel, the destruction even of America.
They do. I mean, some do believe that it was the Mahdi. Whether you do or not, it's going to be a nightmare.
Absolutely.
Do you believe the president and his administration know who this guy is, Ground Zero, that they take it seriously, that they are not, that these are honest mistakes that they're making right now?
Yeah. I think the time has passed for attributing this level of acquiescence, if not enabling, of this Sharia agenda to simple innocence or honest mistakes. I think this administration has exhibited a sympathy, and the president particularly, a sympathy for the agenda of folks who are, in fact, under one front organization or another of the Muslim Brotherhood, seeking to promote Sharia in America. And that's what's so appalling about this, is we should know better. We should know that there were Muslim brothers at the iftar dinner at the White House. We should know that the guy that we're sending on this tour of the Middle East, and by the way, we're sending his wife to meet up with him.
That doesn't make any sense.
A woman who's just denounced us for being anti-Semitic.
Okay, real quick, I've only got about 30 seconds. Real quick, just give somebody a starting point on the Muslim Brotherhood, if you don't know who the Muslim Brotherhood is.
Muslim Brotherhood started in 1920 in Egypt, thereabouts, and its main effort is to restore the caliphate through stealthy means in the West. It is very much present here. In fact, virtually any Muslim American organization in this country of any prominence is a Muslim Brotherhood front. We know that from the Holy Land Foundation trial in Dallas, Texas, and unfortunately this network, like every other, is bringing them forward as the spokesman for the Muslim American community. They shouldn't be any more than the president should be reaching out to them, utilizing them, I should say, as his go-to people.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Too little time, but thanks for having me.
Back in a minute. History is going to be made on Saturday. We're in Washington, D.C. all week for our Restoring Honor rally at the feet of Abraham Lincoln this Saturday, 10 a.m. No tickets available, just come. All right, I know that I'm widely regarded as the guy that you don't want to party with, not only because I don't drink, but I also tend to bring the mood down just a little bit, you know, with the whole talk of, oh, America's over, that kind of thing. Reality tends to set in sometimes, and you don't really want that at a party. But today, I'm actually going to bring you some good news. I think we must be close to winning the fight. How do I know? Well, somebody told me today on the radio that the president's favorite reading source should be opened up and looked at. It was the Huffington Post. Here was the headline. Look at this. Whoa. Look at that. And it's like an Arial 58 font, and it's in red, so it had to be huge news. And I'm like, I said, what about, huh? Well, let's look at the damning gotcha evidence now from the president's favorite news source. They claim that I'm being hypocritical because supposedly I supported the Ground Zero imam way back in 2006. I didn't even remember meeting the guy. Here's the exchange from a guest appearance that I did with Diane Sawyer and Imam Rauf. They were talking about radicals being, quote, a small group of people.
Let me turn to Glenn Beck, because the Imam Rauf has said this is a group of people. This is not him. This is not all of Islam. This is just a group of people.
Sure. I believe it's a small portion of Islam that is acting in these ways. But I believe that it is important for all of us to look evil in the eye and crush it.
You know what? You know what? The Huffington Post actually ran the story that I was endorsing him by saying, sure, sure. That's it? Are you kidding me? That's your argument? Do you know how close we are to winning America? If that's what they're down to, sure, sure. I'd never even heard of this guy before I did this appearance, and quite honestly, until today, I didn't even remember this appearance. I was agreeing, this is crazy, this is how radical and out of control a hate monger I am. I was agreeing that most of Islam is a peaceful religion. Sure, sure. I knew nothing about Rauf at the time.